Guys, we have to start with the Bucks, and after falling behind 2-0, they've turned this series around completely and winning the last three. Jim, what would you point to as maybe the key factor in this turnaround? At this stage, it feels as if the Bucks are now sort of dictating the series and playing it on their terms.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. One is on transition. If you want to just kind of where they're finding points against a team in Phoenix that has been so good defensively. The Bucks, look, they're trying to get out and move it. Whether it's off misses, and get the last game, the signature play, an alley-oop, off a turnover. I mean, they want to push it and get points, and that's what they've been doing these last few games. I don't want to call it as simple as shots are going in, but they are for Chris Middleton. I know, guys, when we've done this before, especially after the first two games, it was, the Bucks need that guy to be, the number two, if you will, or a two-time All-Star, and that's also what's changed. Jrue Holiday has played solid defense throughout, had some offense. Role players have had their moments, but Chris Middleton has shown up, since Game 3, and to me, it's the transition buckets and Chris Middleton playing, he might get a Finals MVP vote, or two if they were to win this thing.
Jeff, what could you maybe point to that the Bucks are doing that has allowed them to really kind of take control of the series?
Jim covered a lot of it really well. I think it's shot making. When Jim mentions Chris Middleton, Jrue Holiday in Game 5, what Giannis Antetokounmpo is doing when he drives to the bucket, and Giannis's playmaking, I think, is a huge part of this. Finding shooters in the corner. Pat Connaughton. I don't remember many P.J. Tucker threes, but I do remember that he hit one in Game 5. And so they're getting some timely buckets as well. And then I don't know, but the Suns scored 119 points. They shot 50% from the field, 60% from three. They were making shots themselves, but I think it's sort of those key timely defensive plays, like the Jrue Holiday steal, like the Giannis block going back to Game 4. And then look, Dwayne will probably be able, and Mark will be able to speak to this topic a little bit better because they've been watching the Suns more. But just little changes, trying to pick up Chris Paul, whether it's full court or three-quarters court, forcing a little bit of action, getting the Suns into maybe some offense that they don't like, has worked well for the Bucks. And give Mike Budenholzer a little bit of credit. He seems to take a beating when it comes to his coaching decisions. But he has found some lineups with Brook Lopez on the bench. And also in that second quarter where the Bucks came back from that 16-point deficit, Giannis Antetokounmpo played 6 minutes in the second quarter. And so he found a rotation that didn't include Giannis that worked well. And so give Bud a little bit of credit for some of the things he's doing behind the scenes and in game.
As Jeff mentioned, from the Suns' perspective, Dwayne, what can you point to as maybe a key factor in them sort of maybe losing their grip on the series?
Well, just piggybacking off Jeff, you don't see Brook Lopez on the Chris Paul island anymore. They said we're not gonna have that. So they've got Giannis on the switches, and it's like Giannis can man up. I mean, he's long and obviously extremely athletic. So Chris isn't getting the easy ones. That mid range is either forcing him to get all the way in or leaving him open to take a three. They're not giving him the mid range right now, and that's a huge part of what's happening in this series. And Jim spoke to the transition points. Bucks are getting 17 a game in the finals. You just don't see that kind of number in the finals where it's supposed to be a half-court game. So the Suns talked about making mistakes, missed assignments, things like that. And so, there's got to be a concern when you can't eliminate the transition, you're getting dominated in the paint, and then on top of that, you're making mistakes, you're turning the ball over. There's just too many things going wrong. Not even Devin getting 40, back to back can overcome that. And just, they can score. The Suns don't have a problem scoring the ball. It's the matter in which how they get it. Are they going to be sharing the ball to assist her down? And just lastly, look, sometimes you just got to just guard the guy. And it can't be all about getting help all the time. It's got to be, hey, I got you, you not scoring on me. And although Chris Middleton's making tough shots, they got to make him make tougher ones. Jrue Holiday made tough shots, got to make him make tougher ones. And Giannis, I get it. He's going downhill, and you're like thinking, what is he going to do? But, hey, one time you got to jump and force the guy to do something else in the air. And, test the playmaking. I thought that they did that. When Giannis had the 8 assists, they at least forced him to make passes. You got to continue to do that. If Pat Connaughton's going to beat you, you just shake their hand and say, you know what? Hell, y'all deserve this one. But it can't be Giannis, Jrue, and Chris Middleton going off. That can't happen. If that happens Tuesday, it's over, period.
You mentioned Giannis, Middleton, and Holiday all going off in Game 5. That's actually been kind of rare for the Bucks, especially here in this postseason. Jrue Holiday has really been hit or miss. They haven't really had one of these games where all three of those guys have been so efficient on that many shots. What can they do to sort of repeat that? Jim, what can Milwaukee do to try to maybe open things up even more to make it, a little easier on them and make it more likely that they can, repeat that performance?
Yeah, I thought to get one in Phoenix, they'd have to do that, and they did. Again, though, I can't predict that Jrue Holiday will have back-to-back games like that. He hasn't. What I can say is he's definitely going to make Chris Paul work, and Devin Booker if that's his assignment. And really, they try to set it up early in the game. It's either Middleton or it's Jrue in the opening plays. Sometimes they'll run a lob to Giannis off that first pick and roll, but usually they want to get one of the other two going in some form or fashion. Just frankly, it hasn't worked. So I think, Matt, that's what they'll do. That they'll continue to do it. It's just, up until recently, Chris Middleton hasn't been that even, especially on the road, and Jrue Holiday hasn't been at all. So I could see them, at least in Game 6, trying it again and seeing what happens. But to Dwayne's point, the Suns, all they can do and need to do is make that a little tougher. And frankly, Giannis, look, he will make the right play in his mind, which is if the wall is strong, he's moving it. He's not putting his head down to get offensive fouls anymore. Maybe he would at the end of Game 7 if that's what mattered. But as of now, that's what the Suns should try to force them into and just see if, one of those other players, as Dwayne said, can step up again.
Coming out of the last couple of games, I think Chris Paul's potential health has been something of a storyline. Mark, what are you hearing from the Suns camp? I'm sure they're going to insist that Chris Paul is fine, but what are you seeing from Paul's play that maybe sort of makes it seem like that wrist injury might be affecting him a little bit?
Well, as you said, Matt, yeah, Chris Paul says he's fine. Monty Williams says he's fine. The only thing that bothers Chris, according to Monty Williams, is him. But they say his health is fine. Now, I'm not an MD. I'm not going to pretend to play one. I did notice after the practice before Game 5 that, take it for whatever it's worth, but Chris Paul was wearing a sweatshirt at his post-game availability, and he had his hand in the sweatshirt pocket while he had the left hand out there. I don't know what that means, but it is an interesting observation. Now, as far as what I see with his game, there's no doubt that he obviously was struggling in Game 4 specifically with, having 5 of the 17 turnovers, that costly one that led to the Jrue Holiday fast break basket. But I think that, after that, he started gaining a rhythm in Game 5 and really had a really good fourth quarter. So now it's about, how does he put all of that together in a complete game? But I think the bottom line is, Monty Williams has hit it on best, that the main issues that the Suns are having, it's their offensive rebounding and their turnovers and the lack of consistency with that. And I think with that has opened up, some issues offensively where you're getting a lot of Devin Booker and maybe some isolation-heavy plays. But that's not to say that Devin is primarily at fault for that. It's more, in Monty's view, that if the team gets defensive stops, they're going to be able to get out and run and get the ball moving, so it's not just one look offensively.
Dwayne, it looked like you maybe wanted to jump in there.
No. I was just going to say, Medina he pointed it out to me about Chris Paul when we were watching. I was like, yeah, I kind of saw that, but I was like, wow, okay, that's a good point. So kudos to Medina on that. But at the same time, look, you got to give Jrue Holiday credit. I'm sorry. I mean, I get it. Chris Paul, I get it. But again, he hasn't had to play defense, really. I mean, like, really have to play it like full court in the playoffs. I mean, the guys he's had to go up against, no disrespect to Alex Caruso or no disrespect to, Denver's guards, and they're not Jamal Murray, you know what I'm saying? So, no disrespect to Pat Beverly, and they're just not what Jrue Holiday brings to the table on the offense and defense. So Jrue Holiday deserves some credit on what's happening with Chris Paul. I mean, he has been the X factor of the X factor in this series, in my opinion. I mean, he's just been a difference maker, and he's making Chris work. I mean, Chris don't have time to look around and see what's surveying, because Jrue Holiday is trying to run it right down his back. So, it's just amazing how Jrue Holiday went from thinking he had to be the second, third option again when Giannis came back to now just jacking it up when he feel like it. And it's just he's been huge. That's part of Chris Paul's issue right now. And part of it, he's played so well in the playoffs, you just expected him to do it throughout. And I mean, this is the NBA final. It's not road trip Charlotte, Toronto. I'm sorry. So there's going to be some challenges in this, and we know what that player he is, but Jrue Holiday deserves credit for what's happening with Chris Paul as well. But there is something wrong, no question about it.
Yeah, and real quick, Chris Paul's trying to make Jrue Holiday work on the other hand as well, and it hasn't worked well.
Right.
There are a few plays when he was inside in the post, and Chris fell on his and Jrue had his day. So I think both guys are trying to make each other tire out on both ends of the floor, and clearly Drew's been more successful with that.
Yeah, I'll just add real quick too. For all the things we're talking about with the Suns, and I said this about Milwaukee after the first two games, I didn't think Milwaukee was that far away after games 1 and 2. I'll say the same thing about the Suns after these 3 losses. Let's throw out game 3, that was a blow. But game 4 and 5, you're talking about a possession ball game in the final minute of both games. And if you look at game 4, when Milwaukee had 19 more shots because of those turnovers and offensive rebounds. I mean, these are things that, it makes for, winning plays, but I think this series is still really, really close. And, I know we're nitpicking. That's what we do here in the finals. But, man, if we're pointing at all of these things, Phoenix was still in the game under a minute to go in 4 and 5.
I know it sounds a little, overly simplistic, perhaps to say, what do the Bucks need to do, to close it out. But I think sort of at this point, that's, what it comes down to for fans, to a certain extent. So, Jim, is there anything, one thing you could say if the Bucks are going to finish this off, this is the one big thing that they need to do, or one big matchup they need to win?
All right, I'll just go there. Look, Giannis has got to wrap the Finals MVP. Look, Chris, he's not going to take the last shot. Chris Middleton's going to be that guy. But I think Giannis, if they're going to win, they're going to do Bucks and 6 for the culture, and have Milwaukee just whatever's going to happen. It's got to be Giannis Antetokounmpo being that guy, on both ends of the court. And it sounds weird to say that because he's been that guy since he's come back from this knee injury. Oh, by the way, that happened, with the start of this thing. But I think DeAndre Ayton and Jay Crowder and when they look, I think the Suns have done well with the Wall at times. They've been connected. They've made him make decisions, as Dwayne said. Look, in that middle part after the 2 40-point games, guys, people wondering, did Giannis hurt himself again? You know, what's wrong with him? Why is he taking himself out? Like, that, to me, that was the Suns sort of changing how he had to play and things of that nature. And Giannis is saying that post game, I got to be more aggressive. So to me, guys, I think if they're going to close it out at home against a desperate Suns team, their MVP needs to win the MVP and get them over the hump and make sure they don't get back on the plane, as Monty Williams says.
Right.
Mark, from the Suns' perspective, if you know we do the same thing and sort of boil it down to the same sort of simplistic side, what would the Suns need to do? What do the Suns need to do to force Game 7?
I think they gotta, just be more consistent. The number one thing is the turnovers and offensive rebounding. I think that will just create the trickle down effect. I think that clearly Devin Booker's going to play his game well. That Game 3 loss, really a lot of it just had to do with him having a really bad off night, as well as DeAndre Ayton getting in early foul trouble. But I think you can trust that Devin's going to get his game going. I think that Chris Paul will get his game going. So I think it's about setting the tone defensively and letting that all take care of itself, as opposed to being an offensive-minded team. Because if the Suns are that way, Booker will get his numbers. To a lesser extent, CP and Ayton will, but they're not going to be getting stops defensively, and there won't be that swift ball movement that the Suns pride themselves on.